Today, on The Secret Sits, we are going to look into another listener request. This one is from our show listener named Savannah. This is a case involving psychological manipulation and personal fortitude, because when you become a captive at the hands of someone who is supposed to support and protect you, keeping all of your wits about you may be the only way you can escape. Today, we are going to explore the case of Elisabeth Fritzl and discover why and how she was held captive for 24 years. Josef Fritzl was born on April 9, 1935, in Amstetten, Austria. In 1956, at the age of 21, he married 17-year-old Rosemary, with whom he had 3 sons and 4 daughters, including Elisabeth, who was born on April 6th of 1966. Fritzl reportedly began abusing Elisabeth in 1977 when she was only 11 years old. After completing compulsory education at age 15, Elisabeth started a course to become a waitress. In January of 1983, she ran away from home and went into hiding in Vienna with a friend from work. She was found by police within 3 weeks and returned to her parents. She rejoined her waitress course, finished it in mid-1984, and was offered a job in nearby Linz. On August 28th of 1984, after Elisabeth turned 18 years old, Fritzl lured her into the basement of their family home, saying he needed help carrying a door. This was the last piece needed to seal what would turn out to be the chamber where Elisabeth was held captive. After Elisabeth held the door in place while Fritzl fitted it into the frame, he held an ether-soaked towel on his daughter's face until she was unconscious, and then threw her into the chamber. After Elisabeth's disappearance, Rosemary filed a missing persons report. Almost a month later, Fritzl handed over a letter to the police, the first of several that he had forced Elisabeth to write while in captivity. The letter, postmarked Braunau, stated that Elisabeth was tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend. She warned her parents not to look for her or she would leave the country. Fritzl told police that she had most likely joined a religious cult. Over the next 24 years, Fritzl visited Elisabeth in the hidden chamber almost every day, or a minimum of 3 times a week, bringing food and other supplies. After his arrest, he admitted that he repeatedly raped her. Elisabeth gave birth to 7 children during her captivity. 1 child died shortly after birth, and 3, named Lisa, Monika, and Alexander, were removed from the cellar as infants to live with Fritzl and his wife, who were approved by local social services authorities as their foster parents. Officials said that Fritzl very plausibly explained how 3 of his infant grandchildren had appeared on his doorstep. The family received regular visits from social workers who saw and heard nothing to arouse their suspicions. Following the 4th child's birth in 1994, Fritzl allowed the enlargement of the prison from 380 square feet to 590 square feet, putting Elisabeth and her children to work for years digging out soil with their bare hands. The captives had a television, radio, and video cassette player. Food could be stored in a refrigerator and cooked or heated on hot plates. Elisabeth taught the children to read and write. At times, Fritzl shut off the lights or refused to deliver food for days at a time to punish them. Fritzl told Elisabeth and the 3 children who remained, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, that they would be gassed if they tried to escape. Investigators concluded that this was just an empty threat to frighten the victims, there was no gas supply to the basement. He stated after his arrest that he told them that they would receive an electric shock and die if they meddled with the cellar door. According to Fritzl's sister-in-law, Christine, he went into the basement every morning at 9 a.m., ostensibly to draw plans for machines which he sold to firms. Often he stayed there for the night and did not allow his wife to bring him coffee. A tenant who rented a ground floor room in the house for 12 years claimed to hear noises from the basement, which Fritzl explained were from a faulty pipe or the gas heating system. On April 19, 2008, Fritzl agreed to seek medical attention after Kirsten, the eldest daughter, fell unconscious. Elisabeth helped him carry Kirsten out of the chamber and saw the outside world for the first time in 24 years. Fritzl forced her to return to the chamber, where she remained for a final week. Kirsten was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, the Landesklinikum Amstetten, and was admitted in serious condition with life-threatening kidney failure. Fritzl later arrived at the hospital claiming to have found a note written by Kirsten's mother. He discussed Kirsten's condition and the note with a doctor, Albert Reiter. Medical staff found aspects of Fritzl's story puzzling and alerted the police on April 21st, who then broadcast an appeal on public media for the missing mother to come forward and provide additional information about Kirsten's medical history. The police reopened the case file on Elisabeth's disappearance. Fritzl repeated his story about Elisabeth being in a cult and presented what he claimed was the most recent letter from her, dated January 2008, posted from the town of Kiematen. The police contacted Manfred Wolfart, a church officer and expert on cults, who raised doubts about the existence of the group Fritzl described. He noted that Elisabeth's letters seemed dictated and oddly written. Elisabeth pleaded with Fritzl to be taken to the hospital. On April 26th, he released her from the cellar, along with her sons Stefan and Felix, bringing them upstairs. He and Elisabeth went to the hospital where Kirsten was being treated. Following a tip-off from Reiter that Josef and Elisabeth were at the hospital, the police detained them on hospital grounds and took them to a police station for questioning. Elisabeth did not provide police with more details until they promised her that she would never have to see her father again. Over the next 2 hours, she told the story of her 24 years in captivity. Elisabeth told the police that Fritzl raped her and forced her to watch pornographic videos, which he made her reenact with him in front of her children in order to humiliate her. Shortly after midnight, police officers completed the investigation. Fritzl, age 73, was arrested on April 26th on suspicion of serious crimes against family members. During the night of April 27th, Elisabeth, her children, and her mother Rosemarie were taken into care. Police said Fritzl told investigators how to enter the basement chamber through a small hidden door, opened by a secret keyless entry. Rosemarie had been unaware of what had been happening to Elisabeth. On April 29th, it was announced that DNA evidence confirmed Fritzl as the biological father of his daughter's children. His defense lawyer, Rudolf Mayer, said that although the DNA test proved incest, evidence was still needed for the allegations of rape and enslavement. In their May 1st daily press conference, Austrian police said that Fritzl had forced Elisabeth to write a letter the previous year, indicating that he may have been planning to release her and the children. The letter said that she wanted to come home, but it's not possible yet. Police believe Fritzl was planning to pretend to have rescued his daughter from her fictitious cult. Police spokesman Franz Pultzer said police planned to interview at least 100 people who had lived as tenants in the Fritzl apartment building in the previous 24 years. The Fritzl property in Amstetten is a building dating from around 1890. A newer building was added after 1978 when Fritzl applied for a building permit for an extension with a basement. In 1983, building inspectors visited the site and verified that the new extension had been built according to the dimensions specified on the permit. Fritzl had illegally enlarged the room by excavating space for a much larger basement concealed by walls. Around 1981 or 1982, according to his statement, Fritzl started to turn his hidden cellar into a prison cell and installed a wash basin, toilet, bed, hot plate, and refrigerator. In 1983, he added more space by creating a passageway to a pre-existing basement area under the old part of the property, of which only he knew about. The concealed cellar had a 16-foot corridor, a storage area, and 3 small open cells, connected by narrow passageways, and a basic cooking area and bathroom facilities, followed by 2 sleeping areas, which were equipped with 2 beds each. It covered an area of approximately 590 square feet. The cell had 2 access points, a hinged door, which weighed 1,100 pounds, which is thought to have become unusable over the years because of its weight, and a metal door reinforced with concrete on steel rails, which weighed 650 pounds and measured 3.3 feet high by 2 feet wide. It was located behind a shelf in Fritzl's basement workshop, protected by an electronic code entered using a remote control unit. In order to reach this door, 5 locking basement rooms had to be crossed. To get to the area where Elisabeth and her children were held, 8 doors in total needed to be unlocked, of which 2 doors were additionally secured by electronic locking devices. In 1967, Fritzl broke into the Linz home of a 24-year-old nurse while her husband was away and raped her while holding a knife to her throat, threatening to kill her if she screamed. According to an annual report for 1967 and a press release from the same year, he was also named as a suspect in a case of attempted rape of a 21-year-old woman and was known for indecent exposure. Fritzl was arrested and served 12 months of an 18-month prison sentence. In accordance with Austrian law, his criminal record was expunged after 15 years. As a result, more than 25 years later, when he applied to adopt or foster Elisabeth's children, the local social services authorities did not discover his criminal history. After his arrest, Fritzl claimed that his behavior toward his daughter did not constitute rape, but was consensual. Mayer forwarded extracts from his minutes of his talks with his client to the Austrian Weekly News for publication. According to these statements, Fritzl said that he always knew during the whole 24 years that what I was doing was not right, that I must have been crazy to do such a thing. Yet, it became a normal occurrence to lead a second life in the basement of my house. Regarding his treatment of the family that he had with his wife, Fritzl stated, "I am not the beast the media makes me to be." Regarding his treatment of Elisabeth and her children in the cellar, he explained that he brought flowers for Elisabeth and books and toys for the children into the bunker, as he called it, and often watched videos with the children and ate meals with Elisabeth and the children. Fritzl decided to imprison Elisabeth after she did not adhere to any rules anymore when she became a teenager. That is why I had to do something. I had to create a place where I could keep Elisabeth, by force if necessary, away from the outside world. He suggested that the emphasis on discipline in the Nazi era, during which he grew up until the age of 10, might have influenced his views about decency and good behavior. The chief editors of the news magazine noted in their editorial that they expected Fritzl's statement to form the basis of the defense strategy of his lawyer. Critics said his statement may have been a ploy to prepare an insanity defense. Reflecting on his childhood, Fritzl initially described his mother as the best woman in the world and as strict as it was necessary. Later, he expressed a negative opinion of his mother and claimed that she used to beat me, hit me until I was laying in a pool of blood on the floor. It left me feeling totally humiliated and weak. My mother was a servant, and she used to work hard all her life. I never had a kiss from her. I never cuddled, although I wanted it. I wanted her to be good to me. He also claimed that she called him a Satan, a criminal, a no good, and he had a horrible fear of her. In 1959, after Fritzl had married and bought his house, his mother moved in with them. Over time, their roles reversed, and his mother came to fear him. Eventually, he also admitted that he later locked his mother in the attic and bricked up her window after telling neighbors that she had died, and kept her locked up there until her death in 1980. It is unknown how long Fritzl kept his mother locked in this attic, but newspapers have speculated it may have been up to 20 years. In a report by forensic psychiatrist Adelheid Kastner, Fritzl's mother is described as unpredictable and abusive. Fritzl referred to himself as an alibi child, meaning that his mother only gave birth to him to prove she was not barren and that she could produce children. Fritzl claims that his pathological behavior is innate. During his prison stint for his earlier rape conviction, he admits he planned to lock his daughter up so he could contain and express his evil side. He said, "I was born to rape, and I held myself back for a relatively long time. I could have behaved a lot worse than locking up my daughter." The forensic psychiatrist diagnosed Fritzl as having a severe combined personality disorder, which included borderline, schizotypal, and schizoid personalities, and a sexual disorder, and recommended that Fritzl receive psychiatric care for the rest of his life. Later reports revealed Fritzl's premeditated plan to lock up his daughter was not for discipline, but for his own gratification. Pursuant to the agreement that she would never have to see her father again, Elisabeth Fritzl gave videotaped testimony before an Austrian prosecutor and investigator on July 11th of 2008. On November 13th, 2008, authorities in Austria released an indictment against Josef Fritzl. He stood trial for the murder of the infant Michael, who died shortly after birth, and faced between 10 years and life imprisonment. He was also charged with rape, incest, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and slavery, which carried a maximum of 20 years. The trial of Josef Fritzl commenced on March 16, 2009, in the city of St. Pölten, presided over by Judge Andre Humer. On day 1, Fritzl entered the courtroom attempting to hide his face from cameras behind a blue folder, which he was entitled to do under Austrian law. After opening comments, all journalists and spectators were asked to leave the courtroom, whereupon Fritzl lowered his binder. Fritzl pleaded guilty to all charges with the exception of murder and grievous assault by threatening to gas his captives if they disobeyed him. In his opening remarks, Rudolf Mayer, the defending counsel, appealed to the jury to be objective and not to be swayed by emotions. He insisted Fritzl was not a monster, stating that Fritzl had brought a Christmas tree down to his captives in the cellar during the holiday season. Christiane Bruckheiser, prosecuting her first case since being appointed chief prosecutor, pressed for life imprisonment in an institution for the criminally insane. She demonstrated for jurors the low height of the ceiling in the cellar dungeon by making a mark on the door to the courtroom at 5 foot 8.5 inches, and described the cellar as damp and moldy, passing around a box of musty objects taken from the cellar, the odor of which made jurors flinch. On the first day of testimony, jurors watched 11 hours of testimony recorded by Elisabeth in sessions with police and psychologists in July of 2008. The tape is said to have been so harrowing that the 8 jurors could not watch more than 2 hours at a time. 4 replacement jurors were on standby to replace any of the regular jurors in case they could not bear to hear any more of the evidence. Besides the video testimony, Elisabeth's older brother Harold testified and said that he was physically abused by Josef as a child. Josef's wife Rosemary and Elisabeth's children refused to testify. On March 18th of 2009, Elisabeth Fritzl attended the second day of the criminal trial against her father Josef, in preparation for a book she wrote about her ordeal. She did not plan to see her father again. Fritzl's attorney, Rudolf Mayer, confirmed she had been in the visitors' gallery, in disguise, at the time her video testimony was aired. Josef Fritzl recognized that Elisabeth was in court, and from this point on, you could see Josef Fritzl going pale, and he broke down, Mayer said. It was a meeting of eyes that changed his mind. The next day, Fritzl began the proceedings by approaching the judge and changing his plea to guilty on all charges. On March 19th of 2009, Fritzl was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years. He said that he accepted the sentence and would not appeal. Fritzl is currently serving out his sentence in Garsten Abbey, a former monastery in Upper Austria that has been converted into a prison. Judge Humer, who presided over the trial, stated medical experts reported Elisabeth and her children were in relatively good health. After being taken into care, Elisabeth, all 6 of her surviving children, and her mother were housed in a local clinic where they were shielded from the outside environment and received medical and psychological treatment. Members of the Fritzl family were offered new identities, but it was emphasized that it was their choice to make. Berthold Keplinger, head of the clinic where Elisabeth and her children were being treated, said that Elisabeth and the 3 children held captive in the cellar required further therapy to help them adjust to the light after years in semi-darkness. They also needed treatment to help them cope with all the extra space that they now had in which to move about. In May of 2008, a handmade poster created by Elisabeth, her children, and her mother at the therapy facility was displayed in the Amstatten town center. The message thanked local people for their support. We, the whole family, would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the sympathy at our fate, they wrote in their message. Your compassion is helping us greatly to overcome these difficult times, and it shows us there are good and honest people here who really care for us. We hope that soon there will be time when we can find our way back into a normal life. Kirsten was reunited with her family on June 8th of 2008 when she was awakened from her artificially induced coma. Doctors said that she would make a full recovery. It was revealed that Elisabeth and her children were more traumatized than previously thought. During captivity, Kirsten tore out her hair in clumps and was reported to have shredded her dresses before stuffing them into the toilet. Stefan could not walk properly because of his height at 5 feet 8 inches, which had forced him to stoop in the 5'6" cellar. It had also been revealed that normal everyday occurrences, such as the dimming of lights or the closing of doors, plunged Kirsten and Stefan into anxiety and panic attacks. The other 3 of Elisabeth's children, who were raised by their father, are being treated for anger and resentment at the events. In late July of 2008, it emerged that Elisabeth ordered her mother Rosemarie out of the villa they had been sharing in a secret location set up for them by the psychiatric clinic. Elisabeth was upset about Rosemarie's passiveness during her upbringing. Lawyer Christopher Herbst, who represented Elisabeth and her family, said, "Fortunately, everything is going very well." They spent their time answering hundreds of letters from all over the world. Felix, Kirsten, and Stefan, brought up underground with their mother, have learned to swim. All of Elisabeth's children attended a 4-day summer camp organized by firefighters, with 4,000 other young campers. The children, along with their mother, also have made day trips, including swimming outings, on which care was taken to keep them out of reach of the paparazzi and to protect their privacy. In March of 2009, Elisabeth and her children were forced to move out of the family's hideaway home and return to their psychiatric clinic, where medical staff had started trying to heal the family and unite the upstairs and downstairs siblings during the previous year. Elisabeth was reported to be distraught and close to a breakdown after a British paparazzo had burst into her kitchen and started taking photographs. After the trial, Elisabeth and her 6 children were moved into an unnamed village in North Austria, where they were living in a fortress-like house. All of the children require ongoing therapy. Factors that traumatized the upstairs children included learning that Josef had lied to them about their mother abandoning them, the abuse they had received from him during their childhood, and finding out that their siblings had been imprisoned in the cellar. The downstairs children received therapy due to their deprivation from normal development, the lack of fresh air and sunshine while living confined in a basement, and the abuse that they and their mother had received from Josef when he visited them in the basement. All of the children might have genetic problems common to children born of an incestuous relationship. Elisabeth was said to be estranged from her mother, Rosemarie, who accepted Josef's story about Elisabeth joining a cult and did not pursue the matter any further. But Elisabeth allowed her 3 children who grew up in Josef and Rosemarie's house to visit their grandmother regularly. Rosemarie lived alone in a small apartment. An article in March 2010 in The Independent stated that Elisabeth and her children recovered remarkably well, given the difficult lives they endured for so long. According to Josef's sister-in-law, Christine, Elisabeth enjoys spending her time shopping, taking frequent showers, and driving. She has passed her driving test without difficulty. Her relationship with Thomas, one of her bodyguards, who is 23 years younger than her, was reported to be ongoing, with him becoming a big brother figure to her children. All of Elisabeth's children have developed normal sibling relationships with each other, and after having trouble dealing with the traumatic events, the 3 upstairs children slowly began recognizing Elisabeth as their mother. The children enjoyed being outdoors, playing video games, and spending time with their mother and grandmother. Despite their strained relationship, Elisabeth and her mother Rosemarie started visiting each other more, and Elisabeth has reportedly forgiven her mother for believing her father's story. On June 28, 2013, workers began filling the basement of the Fritzl home with concrete. Estate liquidator Walter Ansbach stated that the construction would cost €100,000 and would take a week to complete. The house was to be sold on the open market. While most neighbors approved of the proposal, some preferred that the property be demolished due to its sordid history. Asylum seekers were offered the house to live in. The house was sold for €160 in December of 2016, with the buyers voicing their intention to convert the building into apartments. In May 2017, Josef Fritzl changed his name to Josef Merhoff, probably due to getting into a prison fight that resulted in several of his teeth getting knocked out after other inmates set up a fake dating profile with his name and picture. Mark Perry, a British journalist who interviewed Fritzl in his cell, says he has shown no remorse for his crimes. He recalls he kept saying, "Just look into the cellars of other people. You might find other families and girls down there." In April of 2019, it was reported that Josef's health was declining and he did not want to live any longer. He was said to be suffering from dementia. So what do you think of this case? Do you believe that Elisabeth's mother truly had no idea what was going on? Or do you think she was partially a victim herself? 24 years is a long time to hold on to so many secrets. Let us know what you think of this case on our social media, and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. We would truly appreciate it. I'm John Dodson, and this has been The Secret Sits. Audio engineering by Gabriel Dodson. Original artwork provided by Tony Lay.